The vast emptiness of space stretched out endlessly, filled only with the glow of distant stars. In the center of it all, an enormous flagship hovered like a silent giant, its sleek metal surface reflecting the light from distant galaxies. This was the place where the fate of many worlds would be decided. The Galactic Council, a powerful alliance of alien species, had gathered for a summit, a momentous event where the leaders of various species would come together to discuss their future, their conquests, and their strategies. But this time, there was one guest in particular who would be the focus of their ridicule. Among the various species in attendance, humans stood out like a sore thumb. Earth was considered primitive by the standards of the Galactic Council, a planet of little importance to the vast galaxy. The humans, led by Commander Ethan Black, had been invited to this summit as a formality, a way for the Council to indulge in a brief moment of entertainment. The humans were no threat. They were small, insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy. The other species viewed Earth as nothing more than a speck of dust. As Commander Ethan Black stood at the forefront of Earth's delegation, he could feel the weight of the alien gazes upon him. The large room was filled with the hum of foreign languages, the sound of alien laughter ringing out as the leaders of the Galactic Council exchanged stories of their own conquests. They were proud of their advancements, their powerful fleets, and their technological superiority. The humans, to them, were nothing but a curiosity, a species with no place in the future of the galaxy. Ethan's gaze shifted as he noticed the haughty expression of Lord Vekler, the leader of the Zoreth Collective, a powerful empire known for its ruthlessness. Vekler's eyes gleamed with amusement as he leaned back in his chair, looking down at the humans with open disdain. The humans have been quite persistent in their delusion, Vekler said in a voice that resonated across the room. They believe their planet is special. Their people are brave, yes, but they have nothing to offer. No technology, no advanced weaponry, and certainly no power that could stand against the might of the Zoreth Empire. The other leaders chuckled in agreement. The sound of their laughter echoed, filling the massive chamber. Ethan's expression remained calm, but inside, a storm was brewing. He knew they didn't understand. They didn't realize the truth, that Earth had something they didn't know about. The Galactic Council, with all its power and technological advancements, had no idea what humanity had been hiding for years. As the Council's leaders continued to mock Earth, Ethan's thoughts drifted to the Leviathan, the ship that could change everything. For years, Earth's top scientists and engineers had been working on a secret project, one so advanced that it would make anything the Galactic Council had seemed like child's play. And now it was almost ready. Ethan could feel his heart beat a little faster at the thought of it. The time was near, and Earth's secret weapon would soon be revealed. But for now, Ethan had to play along. He had to endure the ridicule, the mockery, the laughter. He couldn't reveal what Earth had been working on just yet. The galaxy had to believe that Earth was still the underdog, still the weak species that would crumble under the might of any alien force. That was part of the plan. The Council continued to speak of their fleets, their armies, and the power they held over the galaxy. They mocked Earth's defenses, calling them primitive. A handful of outdated warships can't protect them, said General Cathar, a brutal leader of the Saurian Dominion, known for his cruel tactics. Their defenses are as weak as their will to fight. Each comment, each word, only fueled the tension building inside Ethan. He had to hold back. He couldn't let them see the fire burning in his eyes. He exchanged a glance with his fellow officers who stood beside him, each one wearing the same calm expression. They knew what was coming. They knew Earth's moment of reckoning was on the horizon. As the aliens spoke with arrogance, Ethan thought back to the countless hours of research, testing, and development that had gone into the Leviathan. Earth had faced many challenges, many doubts, but they had always persevered. They had faced extinction before, whether it was the global wars, the natural disasters, or the alien invasions from years past. But each time, humanity had found a way to survive, to push forward, to adapt. The Leviathan was the culmination of that resilience. It was humanity's greatest weapon, a ship so advanced that no other species in the galaxy would stand a chance against it. But the Galactic Council had no idea. They laughed at Earth's primitive technology, at the weak planet that couldn't possibly stand up to the might of their fleets. They didn't know that Earth was about to change everything. Ethan stood tall, his gaze unwavering, as Lord Vekler and the other council members continued their mocking. "The humans have no chance," Vekler said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "They're a relic of the past, a species whose time is past. They'll be wiped out before they even know what hit them." Ethan's lips curled into a small, almost imperceptible smile. He knew better. He had been part of the Leviathan's development, and he knew that it wasn't just a warship, it was a symbol. It represented humanity's resilience, its ability to fight back against overwhelming odds. It was their answer to the galaxy's smug certainty that Earth was insignificant. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. The laughter of the aliens, the mocking words, the feeling of their superiority. It all became background noise. Ethan's mind focused on one thing: the moment when the Leviathan would emerge from the shadows and show the galaxy just what humanity was capable of. The moment when the arrogance of the Galactic Council would be shattered, and humanity would take its place in the galaxy not as the weak, unimportant species, but as the strongest force the universe had ever seen. "Commander Black," Lord Vekler's voice pulled Ethan back to the present. "Tell us, what is it that Earth has to offer? Do you truly believe that your puny planet has something to challenge the might of our fleets?" Ethan stood, his posture straight, and his eyes locked onto Vekler's. The entire room went silent, the tension palpable. He took a deep breath, and in a voice that was calm but firm, he spoke. "You'll find out soon enough." There was no arrogance in his voice, no pride, just the quiet certainty of a man who knew that the time was coming, and when it did, everything would change. The aliens laughed again, but this time, the laughter was tinged with uncertainty. They didn't know it yet, but they were standing on the brink of an era they couldn't even comprehend. The Galactic Council might have thought Earth was just a joke, a weak species destined to fade into obscurity. But they were wrong. Earth wasn't just a planet full of humans. It was a planet full of survivors, of warriors who would never back down, no matter the odds. And as the summit continued, with mockery and laughter echoing throughout the room, one thing was certain: the day of reckoning was coming. And when it did, the Leviathan would be the galaxy's last, greatest surprise. The Zorath Collective was not just any alien empire. It was a force of destruction, a ruthless, technologically advanced species known throughout the galaxy for their unyielding cruelty and their insatiable desire to conquer. For centuries, the Zorath had spread their empire across countless worlds, leaving nothing in their wake but ashes and ruins. Their fleets were vast, their soldiers unmatched, and their arrogance was only matched by their power. It was this arrogance that led them to Earth. When the Galactic Council had mocked humanity, the Zorath had laughed the loudest. They had dismissed Earth as nothing more than a minor inconvenience in the grand scheme of the galaxy. And now they decided to teach humanity a lesson in humility, they thought. They would send their mighty fleet to Earth, crush its defenses, and wipe out any remaining hope that humanity might have of standing up to the might of the galaxy's most powerful species. The Zorath Collective wasn't content with sending just a few ships. No, they would send a massive armada, hundreds of warships, all equipped with the most advanced weaponry the galaxy had ever seen. They would obliterate Earth's defenses in a single crushing blow, and the humans would finally understand their place in the universe. The fleet set out from the heart of the Zorath Empire, a massive armada of colossal warships, each one brimming with destructive power. As the fleet moved toward Earth, the Zorath leaders communicated with one another, discussing their plans. There was no fear, only certainty. They knew that Earth's defenses were weak. They knew that humanity had no chance of surviving an assault from the Zorath war machine. It would be a quick victory, a mere formality. Back on Earth, however, the atmosphere was tense, but there was no sign of panic. The government and military leaders had been briefed on the incoming threat, but strangely, there was no immediate action taken. The human world watched, holding its breath, as the news reports came in. The Zoreth fleet was closing in. Their ships were enormous, their weapons powerful, and their intentions clear. Earth was about to be crushed under the weight of Zoreth might, and yet humanity did nothing. There was no frantic call to arms, no orders to scramble fighter jets or mobilize defense forces. Instead, there was an eerie stillness. The world held its collective breath as the Zoreth fleet approached, ready to strike the final blow. Commander Ethan Black stood on the bridge of Earth's military headquarters, watching the unfolding events with a calm expression. His mind was focused on the task at hand, the Leviathan. The secret weapon that Earth had worked so tirelessly on was ready for launch. The humans had prepared for this day for years, but they had kept their plans hidden from the rest of the galaxy. The time had come to reveal what humanity had been working on. Ethan glanced at his officers, who stood in silence, awaiting orders. The tension in the air was thick, almost suffocating. The Zoreth fleet was closing in fast, and yet Ethan had given the order to hold position. His eyes flicked to the countdown on the screen in front of him. The Leviathan would launch in 5 minutes. He had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, he could feel his heart race. The world was about to change. "Hold position," he ordered quietly. No one moved. Not a single word was spoken. The bridge was as silent as a tomb. Even the hum of the ship's systems seemed muffled in the tension. Outside, the Zoreth fleet loomed ever closer, their ships massive and intimidating. And yet there was no sign of movement from Earth's forces. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. The Zoreth fleet, confident in their victory, continued their approach. They could almost hear the cries of humanity as they surrendered to their inevitable fate. After all, what could Earth possibly do against such an overwhelming force? Their fleets were outdated, their weapons useless against the advanced technologies of the Zoreth warships. The humans were helpless. Everyone knew that. Except for one thing. They had no idea what the Leviathan was. As the Zoreth fleet moved closer, Commander Ethan Black's hand hovered over the control panel. The countdown was ticking down, each second drawing them nearer to the moment when everything would change. The tension in the room was unbearable, the silence deafening. And then, just as the Zoreth fleet prepared to strike, Earth's first ever military response came, not with weapons or bombs, but with a declaration. Humanity may be small. The voice of Commander Black echoed across the galactic communication network, but we are not defenseless. The words rang out like a challenge, defiant and unyielding. The Zoreth fleet ignored the message, dismissing it as empty boasting. They had heard such declarations before. All species, no matter how weak, always thought they could stand up to the might of the Zoreth collective, and each time they had been wrong. The Zoreth warships continued their approach, their weapons powered up and ready to fire. They had heard Earth's boast, but it meant nothing to them. They were going to crush Earth, and nothing could stop them. The humans had no defenses, no fleets to rival the power of the Zoreth armée. And yet, the countdown continued, ticking steadily toward the inevitable. At the same time, across Earth, millions of people waited in tense anticipation. They knew something was coming, but they didn't know what. The media outlets had reported on the Zoreth fleet's arrival, but the human response was unlike anything they had ever seen. No calls to arms, no frantic reports of emergency measures, only silence. The world held its breath, waiting for the moment when humanity would either fall or fight. And then, in an instant, everything changed. The Zoreth fleet had thought they were invincible, that they could destroy Earth with a single blow. They had no idea what was about to unfold. As the fleet drew closer, the first sign of humanity's response came not from the ground, but from the sky. A brilliant flash of light pierced the darkness of space as the Leviathan launched. It was a sight unlike anything the Zorith had ever seen. The Leviathan wasn't just a warship. It was a work of art, a masterpiece of human engineering. The massive ship emerged from the depths of Earth's atmosphere, its sleek hull gleaming with the light of 1,000 suns. It was the size of a small moon, dwarfing the Zorith warships that had once been so confident in their superiority. The ship's weapons powered up, glowing with energy, ready to strike. The Zorith fleet paused for a split second, their arrogance faltering for the first time. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were about to pay the price. As the Leviathan powered up its weapons, the countdown reached its final moments. The galaxy would never be the same again. The tension in space was thick enough to be felt in the air. The Zorith fleet, towering with arrogance, closed in on Earth. They could taste victory. Their weapons hummed with power, ready to deliver a deadly blow to the helpless humans below. The Zorith ships moved as one, coordinated and ruthless, confident that Earth would fall before their might. But there was one thing they didn't know: the humans had a secret. As the Zorith fleet descended, Earth's response was not one of panic or desperation, but of calm precision. And then, just as the first Zorith ships aimed their weapons at Earth's atmosphere, something extraordinary happened. From the dark side of the moon, a massive silhouette emerged, a shape so large and powerful that even the Zorith, with all their advanced technology, couldn't comprehend it at first. It was the Leviathan. This gargantuan warship, cloaked for years in secrecy, had been waiting for this moment. Designed by the most brilliant minds on Earth, it was the culmination of humanity's technological advancement, a ship so powerful that it could turn the tide of any battle. For years, it had remained hidden, its existence known only to a select few. And now, as the Zorith fleet came within range, it revealed itself in all its terrifying glory. The Leviathan wasn't just a warship. It was a weapon of mass destruction, a technological marvel that outclassed anything the Zorith had ever seen. As it emerged from the shadows of the moon, its hull shimmered, almost as if it were a living, breathing entity. It was enormous, so large that even the vast Zorith warships seemed small in comparison. The Leviathan's sleek, angular design glinted in the dark expanse of space, its surface covered in advanced energy shields that seemed to hum with raw power. The camera zoomed out, showing the full scale of the Leviathan as it positioned itself between Earth and the advancing Zorith fleet. It was a sight to behold, a gargantuan machine of war, its sleek shape making the alien armada look clunky and primitive in comparison. And in a matter of seconds, the ship powered up. Its plasma cannons, massive and deadly, came online with a resounding hum, crackling with energy. The cloaking system that had kept it hidden for so long deactivated with a faint shimmer, revealing its full, terrifying form. The Zorith ships, which had once laughed at Earth's so-called defenses, now froze in place. Their arrogance was shattered in an instant. The Leviathan was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Its power was beyond their comprehension. The Zorith fleet, once so sure of their victory, now found themselves facing an enemy they could never have predicted. The first response from the Zorith fleet came quickly. The largest of their warships launched a barrage of missiles, hoping to breach the Leviathan's defenses. But as the missiles rocketed toward the massive warship, they collided with an invisible force. The Leviathan's shields flared brightly as the projectiles bounced off, unable to penetrate its defenses. The Zorith ships fired their weapons, unleashing everything they had, but it was all in vain. The Leviathan absorbed the onslaught effortlessly, its shields remaining intact as it powered up its own weapons. For a brief moment, the Zorith fleet didn't know what to do. They had never encountered anything like this before. Their weapons, which had been able to obliterate entire planets in seconds, had no effect on this ship. The aliens, who had once dismissed humanity as weak and defenseless, now realized that they were facing something far beyond their understanding. The commander of the Zorith flagship, once so sure of his victory, stared in disbelief as his fleet was overwhelmed by the sheer power of the Leviathan. His ships, which had been designed for dominance, now found themselves outmatched by a single human creation. One by one, the Zoreth warships began to fall. Their shields cracked, their hulls shattered, and their weapon systems failed. The once mighty fleet that had been certain of its triumph now struggled to stay afloat. The battle was unfolding faster than anyone had expected. The Zoreth, once so confident in their superiority, were now retreating, their ships crumbling before the relentless firepower of the Leviathan. As the alien ships were torn apart, one by one, the humans on board the Leviathan felt a surge of hope. For the first time in history, Earth had the upper hand. The human race was no longer the underdog. They were a force to be reckoned with. Commander Ethan Black stood at the helm of the Leviathan, his eyes locked on the Zoreth flagship. He had seen their arrogance. He had watched as they mocked humanity. Now, it was time to show them just how wrong they were. "Target the flagship," he ordered, his voice calm but filled with determination. The Leviathan's graviton cannons powered up with a low, rumbling hum. These were not just ordinary weapons. They were capable of manipulating gravity itself, distorting the very fabric of space. As the cannons locked onto the Zoreth flagship, a brilliant beam of concentrated energy shot out, striking the alien ship with devastating force. The impact was cataclysmic. The Zoreth flagship, which had once been the pride of their fleet, disintegrated in an instant. The massive ship's shields failed. Its hull cracked open, and in a flash, it was gone. There was no debris, no survivors, just the remains of what had once been the most powerful ship in the Zoreth fleet. The Zoreth fleet watched in horror as their flagship was reduced to nothing more than space dust. Their once proud fleet, the force that had been sent to crush Earth, was now crumbling before their eyes. The humans had fought back, and they had won. In a matter of minutes, the Leviathan had turned the tide of the battle, reducing the Zoreth fleet to nothing more than a shadow of its former strength. The shockwaves from the destruction of the flagship rippled through the remaining Zoreth ships. Their confidence evaporated, replaced by panic. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The Zoreth ships began to retreat, their once mighty fleet falling apart as they scrambled to escape the wrath of Earth's secret weapon. But it was too late. The Leviathan was relentless. Its weapons continued to fire, disintegrating Zoreth ships one by one. The battle was over before it had even really begun. The Zoreth, who had once thought they could crush Earth with ease, were now fleeing for their lives. As the final Zoreth warship exploded in a fiery burst, the humans aboard the Leviathan let out a collective cheer. They had done it. They had beaten the Zoreth. They had proven to the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. Commander Ethan Black watched the destruction of the last Zoreth ship with a mixture of relief and pride. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. Earth had made its statement. The galaxy now knew that humanity would not go down without a fight. And as the Leviathan continued to float silently in space, its massive form casting a shadow over the debris of the Zoreth fleet, Earth's message was clear. We are no longer weak. We are no longer the underdog. We are a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy would never be the same again. The chaos of the battlefield had reached new heights. The Zoreth fleet, once so confident in their superiority, was now scrambling to maintain control. The loss of their flagship had shattered their morale, but the Zoreth were not known for giving up easily. Realizing they were losing, they quickly adapted, deploying their most advanced robots, AI drones, and specialized fighter ships. These machines were designed to overwhelm and outmaneuver any enemy, and they began to swarm around the remaining human forces like a storm of mechanical fury. Despite the overwhelming numbers of the Zoreth machines, the humans did not retreat. Earth's forces, led by Commander Ethan Black, were determined to fight to the bitter end. With the Leviathan still looming as a mighty force in space, the humans fought back with a fire and passion that could not be extinguished. The battle, once a one-sided assault by the Zoreth, was now a chaotic clash of metal, fire, and explosions. The Leviathan's advanced AI system, built to predict enemy movements and calculate the most effective strategies, became the key to humanity's success. It analyzed the Zoreth's every move and adjusted Earth's tactics accordingly, ensuring that the humans always stayed one step ahead. The Leviathan's AI became a crucial asset, feeding real-time information to the soldiers on the ground and to the commanders aboard the ship. With each passing moment, the tides of battle shifted. The Zoreth's advanced robots, their sleek designs, and superior weaponry proved to be a deadly threat. They cut through the human defenses with deadly precision, targeting key infrastructure and civilian areas. But the humans, fueled by their desire to protect their home and their loved ones, fought back with unmatched tenacity. On the ground, soldiers moved through the debris of destroyed buildings, firing their weapons and taking cover wherever they could. The air was thick with smoke and dust, making it nearly impossible to see clearly. The constant sounds of explosions filled the air, shaking the ground beneath their feet. But despite the chaos, the human soldiers pushed forward, never faltering in their resolve. The Leviathan's AI played a crucial role in the ground combat as well. As the robots and drones moved in on Earth's defenses, the AI used its advanced algorithms to predict their movements and anticipate their next steps. It fed this information to the soldiers, guiding them through the ruins and allowing them to take advantage of every opening. This strategy turned the tables on the Zoreth machines, which had been designed to adapt to conventional tactics, but struggled to counter the unpredictability of human ingenuity. One of the key players on the ground was Sergeant Bonner, a seasoned veteran of countless battles. Bonner was known for his courage and his unflinching dedication to his comrades. He led a group of soldiers through the chaotic streets, clearing out Zoreth drones and ensuring the safety of a nearby civilian colony. The battle was fierce, and Bonner fought with all his strength, leading his men through the wreckage of what had once been a thriving community. But despite his best efforts, the Zoreth forces were relentless. As Bonner and his team approached the colony's main defensive post, a group of Zoreth robots ambushed them. They were heavily armed and moved with terrifying speed, cutting down any human that came too close. Bonner's squad fought valiantly, but the Zoreth machines were too numerous and too well-equipped. Bonner ordered his men to retreat, but as they turned to fall back, one of the Zoreth drones fired a direct hit on Bonner's position. The explosion was deafening, sending debris flying in all directions. Bonner's men rushed to his side, but the damage was severe. Bonner had been critically injured, his body mangled by the blast. He was still alive, but barely. His eyes, filled with pain, locked with Ethan's as he lay on the ground. We've got to win this, Ethan," Bonner whispered, his voice weak but determined. Ethan's heart sank as he knelt beside his friend. Bonner had been a pillar of strength, a symbol of hope for the human forces. To see him lying there, so close to death, was a crushing blow. But there was no time for grief. Not yet. Ethan could feel the weight of his fallen comrade's words pressing down on him. He had to keep fighting, not just for Earth, but for Bonner, for everyone who had given their life for this cause. With a heavy heart, Ethan gave the order to push forward. "We finish this, now," he commanded, his voice filled with a newfound determination. The battle was no longer just about survival. It had become personal. The Zoreth would pay for what they had done, and Ethan would make sure of it. As Bonner's men carried him away to safety, Ethan watched them go, his resolve hardening with every passing second. He thought of his own family, of the countless lives that had already been lost in this war. He thought of Bonner's final words, and he knew what he had to do. The Zoreth would pay. Back in space, the battle raged on. The Leviathan continued to wreak havoc on the Zoreth fleet, its weapons tearing through the alien ships with ease. But the Zoreth were not going down without a fight. They unleashed wave after wave of advanced fighters, sending them directly toward Earth's forces. These fighters were fast and deadly, equipped with the latest alien technology. But once again, the humans' ingenuity and determination proved to be their greatest weapon. Ethan and his team, still reeling from Bonner's death, fought with even greater fury. The memory of their fallen comrade fueled their every move. The Leviathan's AI continued to predict the Zorath's actions, giving the humans an advantage as they systematically dismantled the alien forces. The Zorath, once so confident in their superiority, now found themselves on the defensive. Their most advanced machines were being destroyed faster than they could produce them. But despite the Zorath's desperation, they refused to surrender. They fought with everything they had, knowing that the loss of this battle would mean the end of their conquest. The skies above Earth were filled with the flashing lights of lasers and missiles as the two forces clashed in a final desperate struggle. Ethan, commanding from the Leviathan, watched as the Zorath fleet slowly began to crumble. Their ships, once so imposing, were now broken and battered. The human forces, though outnumbered and outgunned, fought with a fierce spirit that could not be broken. As the final Zorath ships fell, Ethan knew that the battle was finally won, but the cost had been high. Bonner's death weighed heavily on him, and he knew that this was only the beginning of the war. The Zorath may have underestimated humanity, but they had learned their lesson. The battle for Earth had proven that humanity was not to be trifled with. The Zorath would not soon forget the lesson they had learned today. The Zorath fleet, now broken but still dangerous, made its last stand. The few remaining ships formed a tight formation, knowing this was their final opportunity to destroy Earth and its forces once and for all. The Zorath had lost their flagship and many of their best ships, but they were not going to retreat. With their pride on the line, they sent everything they had in one massive assault. The fleet surged toward Earth with relentless speed. Their weapons lit up the dark space, launching a barrage of missiles, plasma cannons, and devastating energy blasts. The Zorath commanders were desperate. They had been beaten, humiliated, but they could not let this battle end in defeat. The alien ships, though heavily damaged, still packed an enormous punch. With everything they had left, they aimed their attacks directly at Earth's cities. They unleashed an orbital bombardment that could erase everything in its path. The first wave of missiles struck Earth's defenses, tearing through the atmosphere and causing massive explosions across the surface. Buildings crumbled, the ground shook, and the sky was set ablaze with fiery trails. It was as if the Zorath were trying to wipe humanity off the map, making sure that no trace of their existence remained. But what they didn't count on was the power of humanity's resolve. Inside the Leviathan, Ethan Black watched in disbelief as the first round of attacks hit their target. The air was thick with tension, and the weight of the situation bore down on every member of the crew. The Zorath were no longer holding back. They were throwing everything they had at Earth. The entire fleet seemed to be dedicated to ensuring Earth's complete destruction. Yet, Commander Black knew that Earth's survival depended on one final push. The time had come for the Leviathan to take the lead. With the alien ships advancing rapidly, Ethan ordered a bold, high-risk maneuver. He knew it was their last chance to win the war. There could be no hesitation. The Leviathan's cloaking devices would have to work at full capacity, allowing them to evade the Zorath's attacks while retaliating with deadly force. It was a gamble, but it was their only option. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We're not just going to sit here and be bombarded, Ethan commanded, his voice sharp but filled with a calm determination. He could feel the adrenaline surging through him. This would be the battle that decided Earth's fate. The fate of humanity rested in their hands. The Leviathan's cloaking system activated, and the ship vanished from sight. It was an extraordinary piece of technology, designed to make the ship nearly invisible to all forms of detection. The crew braced themselves as the massive warship, cloaked and ready, powered up its engines. The ship moved with remarkable agility, weaving through the barrage of energy blasts and missiles that streaked through space toward Earth. Each explosion shook the ship, but it remained unharmed as the cloaking system worked in perfect harmony with its evasive maneuvers. Ethan's focus was razor-sharp. He knew the Zorath were not far behind. They would adjust their aim to where the Leviathan had been, trying to track it. But Ethan had another surprise waiting for them. The Leviathan wasn't just moving at high speed. It was also locking onto the key alien ships that had been wreaking havoc on Earth. Ethan had one goal now: to make sure that the Zorath fleet would never be able to attack Earth again. Target their flagship and the remaining destroyers. All remaining weapons, fire at will. Ethan ordered, his voice carried through the control room as the crew followed his commands with precision. With a few swift movements, the Leviathan's weapons came online. Plasma cannons flared to life, energy shields powered up, and missiles shot out, heading directly for the core of the Zorath fleet. The first strike hit a Zorath destroyer, causing a massive explosion that sent debris scattering through space. The remaining alien ships adjusted, but they were too slow. The Leviathan, now fully visible to the naked eye, tore through the Zorath's defensive lines, avoiding fire with sharp, calculated movements. The battle was now at its peak. Explosions filled space as Zorath ships attempted to retaliate, but their attacks were ineffective. The Leviathan's shields absorbed the incoming fire, and its weapons ripped through the alien ships with unrelenting force. The battle had turned into a high-speed dance of destruction. Human technology against alien power, with each side giving its all in a last-ditch effort to secure victory. For Ethan, this battle was personal. He wasn't just fighting for Earth. He was fighting for every single person who had lost their life in this war. He was fighting for his fallen comrades, for Bonner, for everyone who had given everything to protect their world. The memories of the soldiers who had sacrificed so much fueled his determination. He knew they couldn't let the Zorath win. The Leviathan streaked across the battlefield, dodging another round of fire. It was a beautiful, terrifying sight as the massive warship flew with precision, evading missiles and plasma beams while taking out enemy ships one by one. The crew, despite the pressure, moved with incredible efficiency. Each attack, each countermeasure, was executed perfectly. The final confrontation occurred when the Leviathan locked onto the Zorath mothership, the last remaining force in the alien fleet. The ship was enormous, heavily armored, and bristling with weapons, but it was no match for the Leviathan's advanced capabilities. Ethan knew this was their moment to strike. All guns, target the mothership's power core, Ethan ordered. With deadly accuracy, the Leviathan's weapons locked on to the mothership's weak point. The crew fired the ship's graviton cannons, and the blast that followed was unlike anything the Zorath had seen before. The entire Zorath mothership was torn apart in a matter of seconds, the explosion sending shockwaves through space that rattled the remaining Zorath fleet. With their flagship destroyed, the remaining Zorath forces were left in disarray. They had no leadership, no coordinated plan. One by one, their ships fell to Earth's retaliatory strikes. The battle, which had seemed so hopeless just hours before, was now nearly over. The Zorath's last desperate stand had failed. As the dust settled and the remnants of the Zorath fleet drifted through space, Ethan allowed himself a moment to breathe. The war was not over, but they had won a decisive victory. Humanity had stood strong, against all odds, and proven that they could protect their world. But the cost had been great. The memory of Bonner's sacrifice and the lives lost would haunt Ethan, but he knew one thing for certain: they had secured their future. The battle was over, and Earth had won. But this victory was only the beginning. The Zorath would remember the lesson they had learned today, and so would every other alien race in the galaxy. Humanity was no longer weak. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The Zorath fleet, once an imposing force, now drifted lifeless through space. Their ships, shattered and broken, were nothing more than floating wreckage after the relentless assault from humanity's secret weapon, the Leviathan. The battle that had seemed so hopeless just days ago was now a crushing defeat for the once feared Zorath Empire. Ethan stood at the command center of the Leviathan, his eyes fixed on the debris of the Zorath fleet, as his voice echoed through the ship's comm system. Earth will never again be underestimated. Laugh at us now, and it will be your last, he declared. His words carried the weight of a nation, a people who had been pushed to the brink, and yet had risen stronger than anyone could have imagined. As the last remnants of the alien fleet retreated, the human forces knew they had secured a victory that would be remembered across the galaxy for centuries to come. The Zorith Empire, once confident in their superiority, had been humbled by the very species they had mocked. Humanity had proved that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could fight and win. But as the ships faded into the distance and the echoes of battle slowly silenced, a deep, solemn silence filled the hearts of those who had fought and won. Ethan knew the victory was hard-won, and it came at a great cost. He walked slowly through the halls of the Leviathan, his mind heavy with the weight of all that had happened. As he stepped outside, he found himself at the makeshift memorial for those who had fallen in the war. Among them was Bonner, the soldier who had given everything to protect humanity. Standing over his grave, Ethan felt the sharp sting of loss, but also an overwhelming sense of pride. Bonner was one of many who had sacrificed their lives in this battle, but his sacrifice had been the one that pushed Ethan to keep going. The memory of his fallen comrades, the soldiers who had given their lives for Earth's survival, filled Ethan with a deep sense of gratitude and responsibility. Humanity had always been underestimated, ridiculed by other alien races as nothing more than a primitive species, too weak, too fragile to ever stand up to the mighty empires of the galaxy. But now, that perception was shattered. The galaxy had watched, and they had witnessed the strength of humanity. The humans had stood their ground against the mighty Zorith, a race so advanced they were thought to be unstoppable. But humanity had proved them wrong. Looking down at Bonner's grave, Ethan realized just how far humanity had come. They were no longer the underdogs in the galaxy. They were not the insignificant race that others laughed at or ignored. No, humanity had discovered something within themselves that no alien empire had ever anticipated. The power of their spirit, their resolve, and their will to fight for their future. "We've made it, Bonner," Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind. "We did it for all of us." He placed a hand on the gravestone, offering a silent promise to all those who had fallen. They had fought not for glory, but for survival. And in that fight, they had uncovered an unbreakable strength that would forever define them as a people. As Earth began to rebuild from the devastation wrought by the war, the entire galaxy watched in awe. News of the victory spread quickly, reaching every corner of the galaxy, from the most distant star systems to the heart of the most powerful empires. No longer was Earth seen as a weak, insignificant world. Now, humanity had proven itself as one of the fiercest, most determined species to ever exist. The war was over, but humanity's journey had only just begun. They had survived the impossible, and now they stood tall. The reputation they had earned would echo across the stars, a message that would resonate through every alien empire. Humanity was no longer a race to be underestimated. In the weeks following the battle, Earth's leaders gathered to discuss the future. They had won a great victory, but the cost of war was never truly paid in full. The world had been ravaged, its cities and infrastructure damaged, and many lives lost. Yet there was a sense of unity, a determination that Earth would rise from the ashes stronger than ever before. With the Zorith Empire retreating, the humans knew that their enemies would think twice before attacking again. But the most significant change was within humanity itself. In the aftermath of the war, people from all over Earth came together to rebuild, to heal, and to ensure that the strength they had discovered would never fade. The survivors knew that Earth had been tested, and they had emerged victorious. They had faced their greatest challenge and had not only survived but had thrived. For Ethan, this victory was the beginning of something greater than just one battle. It was the beginning of humanity's ascent into the stars. The message was clear. Earth was no longer a mere dot on the galactic map. They were a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson that day. one that would echo through the ages. Underestimate humanity, and you will regret it. As Ethan gazed up at the sky, watching as Earth's rebuilt cities glowed beneath the stars, he felt a surge of pride. Humanity had proven that they could face the impossible, stand up against the most powerful forces in the universe, and win. The future was theirs to shape. The war was over, but the story of humanity's rise had only just begun. Earth was no longer a joke. It was a testament to the power of determination, unity, and the indomitable will of humankind. The galaxy would soon learn that when humanity is pushed to the edge, they will fight back, and they will always come out on top. And so, as the smoke of battle faded into history, Earth's victory became more than just a tale of war. It became a story of hope, of resilience, and of the unbreakable spirit of humanity. No matter what challenges lay ahead, humanity knew that they had already won the most important battle of all, the battle for their place in the universe.